Um, if anybody saw my presentation on field day at the LARC, this is just tweaked a little bit, but um, so LARC has always kind of sponsored the field day, and you know, Fred always ran the show. It's kind of how it went. We had folks from our club show up. We kind of all participated, but even offered to give them food for, or money for food and all those things. Didn't want that. I think he just wanted to run it the way that he wanted to run it. Fred retired from doing that last year. And then this year, there wasn't kind of any meetings. Nothing happened. Everything went to the last minute. And I'm going to talk about that. But I want to talk about the history of Field Day and my 36 years, how things have changed too. So Field Day started in 1933 as International Field Day. If anybody's not familiar with Field Day it's a one time a year. We all get together. People set up stations all over in different places. And to set up portable stations, kind of like we do our QRP every month, except this is a 24-hour operation. So we run through the night making contacts, and they say it's not a contest. It's not simply to hold a contest, but amateurs would rapidly assemble the stations and do emergency type communications like we do on a QRP, but like I said, a little bit longer, and there's food involved, so that usually brings more folks out too. So the original concept was just to get operators to get out of your shack, just like POTA is. Get out of your shack, get out there and operate somewhere. It's a lot more fun when you can go out to a park somewhere, enjoy the weather, and operate. Build and operate. Build your own antennas, just as Mike mentioned, the QRP. Bring your own homemade antenna. Exchange contacts efficiently while logging results, and demonstrate that amateur radio can remain useful when normal communications infrastructure is unavailable, like when cell phones and rapid radios don't work. So, and if anybody knows, I don't like rapid radios. It's just, it's no, that's okay. My wife will yell to me and she'll say, "Your commercial's on." I said, "It's a cell phone with a radio. That's what it is. It's a Nextel phone." So anyway, so I thank Fred. He'd set up at Kathleen Historical Society for many years and had done it. He did a good job, but the fact of the matter is, we ended up having a venue change because when he retired, that kind of Kathleen Historical Society kind of fell apart. We weren't going to be able to go there any longer, so we were looking for a new place. So why not? And I'll tell you about that. We had some challenges. What we did for Field Day, how did we do? What can we do better? And it takes a village, and then a big thank you. So, and what are we going to do in the future? So we did change, and we went to the Tom Davis Educational Center there at Lakeland Linder. This is the same place where we would operate, the Lakeland Club would operate the Sun and Fun Station. Turned out to be a good place to be. I think we had better turnout because it was, instead of, for some folks here in this club who were going to participate, Kathleen was kind of a good haul. So this was a much better central point, I think, for both clubs. And the facility worked out fine. There are things we need to change, but the reason why we ran into some obstacles is, and the pros were that it was closer than our previous day location. The cons, the food's more challenging because we didn't have the kitchen set up like we did at Kathleen Area Historical Society, and not as much outdoor space for antennas, but everybody started reminding me that we can use the front of the building too. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So it worked out pretty good. We had, it's luckily that the folks, there's been a changeover too in the Sun and Fun group, with regards to who's operating it. So it was nice that we were able to keep the venue. It sounds like that's going to be something we can do in the future. We did clean it up better than we left it. So, that was a big thing too. We did still have food. Dave worked in the challenging spot to put things out, sandwiches. He had some barbecue out earlier, and we were running 3 Alpha stations. So what happened is that the challenges for it was there was no pre-planning. Actually, I didn't know if it was really going to happen. I had only signed up to set up and take down, which I usually would, and I didn't sign up to operate during the day. I would operate overnight because I had already committed to Daryl to do for the section to go in the caravan and visit all the other field day sites in the section. Well, he was going to be out of the country, so he was going to have limited participation with it. We didn't have a field day chairman, and so I signed up I had previous commitments, so I had to get some help too to kind of run it until I got back from the back from the caravan. And then the facility coordination, there was another brick wall because I did not have direct communication with the people running the facility. It turned out that Jeff Chuck, who had set it up previously before, and Sun and Fun had some medical issues, and then but he had Jim W4XDS kind of do that for us. So we had a little bit of miscommunication. I didn't get the communication when we could set up on Friday till like Thursday to let folks know when we were going to be able to set up on Friday, and then equipment and time. So it was a crunch time thing. So as soon as I found out that I was going to kind of have to coordinate things, I started a checklist and started to get some things together. Going to talk about the people who stepped forward to help make a lot of things happen. We had 3 stations. One of them was my FT8 station. I'll talk about the other stations in a little bit, but that did turn out working out. And it was short amount of time, checklist, getting people. We had people then started coming out of the woodwork when they kind of knew a little bit of a dire straits that we were kind of in. They started coming forward, which is great. I will tell you, in all the places that I've lived in the United States, in places where I've gotten involved with some of the ham clubs, I've never met a better group of hams than here in Polk County, in both clubs, but especially the LWRA. And I had people reaching out to me, including the county, and I'll talk about that later. So we ended up 1 station less than we had operated in previous years. We operated 3 stations, which I think was kind of a good medium, because with 3 stations, when we ran more stations at Kathleen, there were times some stations weren't being operated on. This way I can kind of keep all 3 operating at any one time. So we ran an ICOM 7300 on voice that was connected to a buddy hex beam. That was from Dan, WZ1P. He wasn't really able to stay out and participate much. He's had a few health issues and so on, and he's real big into the buddy pole business, and he brought out his buddy hex beam with his 7300. We used Yaesu FT450 for voice and CW. That actually belonged to the county at the EOC. And then the 3rd station was the my FT891 running FT8. So we had a informational table set up. We had visitors who came in who had never been involved with ham radio before. I think if we had better signage, I'll talk about that later, we could have brought some more folks in. And we had plenty of people come out to operate. And I think the best thing that I can remember was I had to run and go get some paracord because I helped the ham hang some antennas and used most of mine up. I went to Home Depot before I met the setup crew, and I really didn't expect many people to be there. And I walked in the door, and there's a room full of people there waiting to set up, and that was just awesome. So as I mentioned, we had a buddy hex beam there. That was a great antenna. We had a 40-meter dipole also set up, and then we had a 130-foot long end-fed antenna that with no tuner required, and that actually worked out really, really well. I've set up some of those for people, and that 130-foot long wire just outstanding.
The most fun there was the guys putting it up.
Yeah, well, first we started with the slingshot thing didn't work out. I'd love to have, I want to build one of those pneumatic launchers, so I have it for next year. I do want to. Somebody brought one to the Lakeland Club meeting. I want to build one of those, but that would have helped. But it took but one good throw, and I got that thing up there. For our first time venue, a field day came together last minute. I think it was pretty good. Our preliminary score was 24-24, about 42% of the score we had last year, but not bad for a 3A station where it was really a, kind of a village who put everything together. And as W4XDS said, as we walked in the door, and we were just kind of getting set up, this was new place, new people kind of doing their thing, and more of a group involvement rather than kind of one person involvement. It really, that worked out great. Everybody came out, relaxed, had a good time. We actually sacrificed some points at one point when I was not there because we had some new folks come in, or new hams, or somebody who wanted to be on the air as a ham, and they spent time with the lady, and she made her first contact, and it took a couple hours, and they were really working with her, and she did, and was very excited. And then we had people kind of take material who wanted to become hams. So that's really what it was all about. Listen, if we stopped to help somebody who'd never been on the air before and they had their license, and I've worked with some before who hadn't spent a lot of time on HF, and then they get to see how the rhythm of what you do on field day, because field day is a fun time to operate because it's just a big pile up. So you just get out there, and then when you start to see kind of the rhythm of how to do it, well, then people that I had worked with there, you know, then sat there and operated themselves for a long period of time, including one ham who had been out of the hobby for the longest time, and he spayed all night. And he said, sign me up next year. And he was like really happy to be kind of back in the hobby again. So, I mean, he'd been out a long time. To get better, we just have to plan a little earlier. So when the board changes over there, I think we'll form that in. But as I've mentioned to them too, in order to really make this work, it's a both club effort. So I think they kind of get the feeling on that. I think it really has to be that way. I think that's really important because between the two clubs, we can easily have a successful field day. We need some signage. I had one guy that I'm glad I hooked it back up. Christine had done she did the Eagle Net, I think from there on that night. And a lot of people checked in, but she turned off the radio that was our talking radio. I turned it back on about 4 o'clock in the morning. A guy came on there. I can't find you. I'm here at the airport. He was at the wrong spot. I told him to get there, but with some signage that we could put out on like Pipkin and Medulla and some other places that kind of point them in, ham radio and have an arrow, I think we can get even the general public in. So we do need better signage. And
it'd be nice if we get some money up there on that billboard they got out there on
that would be great too, because that alternates. So you do? All right. Well then, there you go. All right. See, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where somebody else has and can contribute and make these things happen. So yeah, exactly. So like I said, it takes a village. It's more than one person. So I can help coordinate, but it's the people who come forward with all of their individual things. So if it wasn't for the support that I had, and I'm sure I'd leave people out. Jeff Shuck, WA4MMO, he luckily he came to the LARC meeting on Monday. He's had some health issues and all. Everybody was happy to see that he's doing okay. But he's always really worked hard to get that spot for Sun and Fun, coordinate the W4 Sierra call sign that we get to use during that time frame and that. But he started it, had some issues, and then Jim W4XDS came in and he filled in when I couldn't be there. But I've already told Daryl next year I'm not doing the caravan anymore. I'd rather put all the energy toward making field day a lot more fun. And this guy here. So Tom was super. I can't tell you. I mean, he's usually Mr. Sun and Fun. He usually has the best decked out side by side out there at Sun and Fun. You see a really good decked out side by side, and hopefully next year we have some signs on it to talk about where a ham radio station is. He's a guy you want to find. He was. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I mean, in the mornings it was steaming hot. He had his line of inverter generators, a 9,000 watt generator there, and he was filling them up. And he was busting a pretty decent sweat out there. So thanks to Tom. He also came through when I wasn't there. We thought we had internet connection there. They changed all the passwords. Of course, it was a Friday evening. We couldn't get a hold of anybody from IT. And he made a call to Verizon to get his hotspot set up just so that he could provide internet connection for the phones that were there. And even, Dave offered to bring his Starlink KR4 IRM offered to bring his Starlink set up there. I mean, this is the type of thing that makes field day successful. If everybody just does, just like the QRPs, just do their own little bit, it can be very successful. So, and then Dave, and I always hack his last name. I just call him KI4WRX. It did great with the food, and Dan WZ1P for bringing out his buddy pole, and the other thing was there were a bunch of computers that were going to get ready to be thrown out. And one of the hams there said, "Hey, we've got to donate them. So they're just going to go in the trash." He said, "I've got power supplies for all of them, but just one battery. So we just need to hook them with the power supply. We're going to be on generators anyway, and we put those on UPSs." But he donated them, and they were really slow. We put Linux on all of them. They have the exact same version of Linux. We put the N3 FJP software on there for our logging. So I've got, in case one of the 3 died, I have 5 more backups. I have 8 of those ready to go for that. So that was a nice donation to help us, at least for the logging computers, and they work well for that. Took the logs off. They're on Linux. Took the logs off of them, put them together, compiled them, and then but big thing was the county support. He offered anything that the county could. He may bring out one of their trailers next year too. And they offered, up besides the radio piece and all that. Paul came out personally, came to set up. He operated some. He sat down Saturday evening into Sunday morning knocked out 100 CW contacts. After his 100th, he put his CW key back in his bag, says, got you 100 CW contacts. Have a great evening. And but he left, and it was great. And unfortunately, found out when I went through the logs, I don't know how, but he had a Duke. So he had 99. So he wasn't happy about that. But still, though, but he was just outstanding. And I know there's some hams in the room who are new, who Paul works for the county. He's our emergency management director. He's the guy you see on TV when there's a hurricane or whatnot. And I know there's hams in this room who've been on our signal chat who either built an antenna or had an issue, and he stopped by and put an analyzer on and helped him out. Yeah. So for Matt. So you know, he has really helps the ham radio community, and they've been extremely helpful with the repeater system that we have here, the WC4 PEM, the D-Star machine, you know, support. He's a trustee. Yeah, he's a trustee for most of the repeaters in the county. Yeah, the GMRS machine, DMR. So real quick, so President Buddy Morgan, he has supplied a lot of the gear. In fact, whether it was power strips, other things or whatever, one day before he went out of the country, he was going to Germany. He went to the big ham fest in Germany. And before he left, he had I spent a whole day with the coax and links and everything he had, and for everything he had to try to itemize everything to figure out, okay, what has he got and what do we need? And then put those on the checklist, or the bandpass filters, everything, trying to figure out what we had, what we needed. I mean, so like a week up to it, I was working with everything we had and then contacting other people to give us those parts. So I did want to mention, though, for Mike also, for encouraging everybody in the club here to provide that support. I really think it needs to be truly a true club, a true club field day, and that's what made it successful this year. And I'm not one that ever wants to do everything myself. I was in leadership positions at Delta Airlines. I realized the guys who died out were the guys who tried to do everything themselves. The guys who were successful were the ones who keyed in on the people that they had and their capabilities and skills, and then made all that thing work together. And that's the key, and that was key for this. So, and most of all, thanks to everybody in both clubs who came out to participate. Even if you're not going to operate a radio, just stop in, sign the log, take a look around. It's a field day is a fun event to do. But I do want to say, I'm thinking back to a video I posted, and some people noticed from 1993. I posted a Garden City Amateur Radio Club field day that from back in the day that we did, and they were like, "That tower almost fell on those guys." I said, "Yeah, things were a little different back then, and how things were done. Gone are the days of the guy just kind of like what was it in." One of the Christmas movies where he's standing at the curb and he's draining his RV and it's chemicals and all that. Gone are the days of the guy standing there, refilling his generator while it's running. So Fred and them decided they like to go out to like Coal Creek Park, and that's what they did while we were doing field day. He liked being in a park to do an operating, and that's fun and everything. And I did that back in the day. And we operated in a field at a church, and we had tents set up and operated all night. There were times it rained like crazy. I still remember somebody yelling to Chris's tent, "Chris, you've got to shut down your station. Your power strip is underwater." And when I was younger, that was a lot of fun. When I'm older, I'm happy to have a building and restrooms and food and to be able to operate overnight, and especially down here, air conditioning. So you know what? I mean, some people think, well, it's kind of not the, in field day down here, if you're going to be out in the field in hot weather, no. So I think you can. There are places that do go out and operate. Trying to think of one of the places we stopped this year that was inside this year as opposed to outside. And I remember them being, I think it was maybe in Hillsboro, but in the Brandon Club. And they were all just sweating it one year when we got there, and it was just hot as anything. Well, then they went indoors the next year. So I think here that works. Still field day. We're still putting antennas up on the fly and putting things outside and doing our thing. So what does the future look like? Well, it looks like we'll be able to get that facility next year. I'm happy to work to help coordinate all the efforts there this year and put that in. I don't want to do it all myself. I'm going to need everybody's help and support, just like I had this year. I mean, it was outstanding. I still talk to my wife about Tom's support and the other people who just were busting a sweat out there and made things happen. And that was just really important. And thanks to all and that support. So any questions?